Thank you.
Welcome, Keith. Thanks for coming in and sharing some of your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So you know what it's like to feel like a victim.
Yeah, I do. A lot of what you guys were talking about earlier really makes me. I mean, it takes me back to a time and place that I don't live anymore. So,
And you were a victim from a very early age.
I was 14 months old. We're coming up on the 39th year of being a child abuse survivor. So,
yeah, tell us what happened.
November 18th, 1978. My mother's at the time boyfriend. My mother was single when she had me, and she was 19, looking for love in all the wrong places, and brought a guy into the home that probably shouldn't have been there. And in the middle of the night, he held my face to an electric heater, resulting in the third-degree burns and the scars and the wrath of abuse, and I had some broken legs and different things.
Wow.
But he left me on the bed, put a washcloth on my face, and left me there to die. I was in shock, obviously, by the time we got to the hospital.
Right.
Doctors didn't know for a couple of weeks if I was going to live or die because of the shock and the trauma that I went through. Knowing what I know now, God had a plan that whole time. But it took me a very long time to get to that forgiveness piece that you were talking about earlier, to understand. And then even in today, where I live today, it's still a constant act of giving forgiveness to a man that I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And he was not a part of your life after that.
No, he was part of the state penitentiary.
Yes.
After that, he spent 10 years in a state of Michigan prison.
Okay.
And I often say that I got the rest of my life to feel alone, alienated, and angry. And that was a sentence that I had for a long time, but not anymore. So,
what started the turning point process for you, where you went from that alienation to feeling like there was something different for you?
Well, in the earlier segment when you guys were talking, you were talking about living as a victim, and allowing people to do things to you and different things. And I live in a world where hurt people. So I was continuously hurting people, and it wasn't like I was purposely hurting people, but I was hurting people by my words, by my actions. Like I was a victim, but I was continuing the cycle just in a different way. I wasn't holding faces to heaters or breaking legs, but I was hurting people. And I became an alcoholic. And I like to drink early. I like to drink often. And I like to drink a lot.
Right.
And that was my way of coping with the pain. However, I didn't know that that's the reason why I was drinking for a long time. And then on my 35th birthday, I had woke up on a Sunday and I was in a world of pain. And I started drinking again to get away from the pain, because as an alcoholic, that's normally what you do.
Yeah, that's what we do.
And I got to a point where I was just looking at my life, where I was going, where I wanted to be, and where it was at. And that stuff was just all across the board. And I just said, God, if you're there, I need some help. And it was like almost instantaneously. I poured out what I was drinking, and I just kind of walked back into the house because I was sitting in my car listening to music. And that next day, life just started to change. And I think that's where I found that true forgiveness for the man that I didn't know, that was controlling my life for 34 years. And it set me on a path where, there's empowerment in saying I'm a child abuse survivor. There's empowerment in saying that I'm an alcoholic, because those things can't hurt me anymore when I say that. So it goes a long ways. It really does.
When you're healed and you're bringing that healing.
I talked earlier about hurt people, but healthy people help people, right?
Yes.
I mean, and that's exactly where you guys are at right now with being able to share with all kinds of guests and let them be empowered.
Right. And to me, the abuse he did to you, because it was physical, because it actually harmed your face the way it did at such a young age, that set you up for bullying. That set you up for a whole lot of other damage. Right.
Yeah.
And wasn't some of the stuff you said where you hurt people, wasn't some of that just a reaction to protect yourself? Absolutely.
Absolutely was. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, right? I was a teenager in the 90s, but I just did this thing on Facebook today. I like this page. It's called I love the 80s or whatever. And it said, type in the year that you're born in a GIF and it'll come up with images.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, I was 10 in 1987. Well, I typed that in and Freddy Krueger popped up. Right?
Wow.
So I was 10 years old. And those are some of the names that I, growing up in that era, I looked like Freddy Krueger, and that was used against me.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And Scarface and Burnt Toast Baby. I mean, all kinds of verbal abuse that I received from classmates for, again, nothing that I did.
And you had no control over what was done to you.
Right. And growing up, realizing that I look different than everybody. I mean, that's a challenge in itself when you get to 5, 6 years old and you start realizing that you're a lot different than everybody else.
Well, so is she. She's like got an arm thing going on.
She's just like me.
I'm like, what's up with this? I'm feeling totally left out here. I have all my limbs and my face has no scars.
You can shave your head or something.
Yeah, there you go.
That's funny.
But seeing the healing and how that comes out when you see the brokenness in a public way, like both of y'all's is, but then you see the power behind demonstrating the healing behind that. You don't walk around going like this, hiding your face. You have a beautiful smile and your eyes light up, and that's what I see.
Yeah.
And Ginny, the same thing.
It's
the who you are that is so full of life and light. That's amazing.
Well, it's coming out of the darkness into the light, which allows that to happen. It's truly the power of Christ, of being able to say, hey, leave it at the cross and then let it go,
right?
And watch it bloom. In reality,
exactly.
But it's been such a God thing that it's amazing.
And you've written a book.
I've written a book
about your story and your journey.
A little novella,
about a baby.
About a baby. Story of a child abuse survivor.
Awesome. Yes. And that's kind of what sparked your journey. But then shortly after that, you started the Keith Edmonds Foundation.
It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, what is that? What do you do with that?
In 5 years, it was September 9th, 2012 is when I came to Christ in my car and started this journey. And you have to understand that I never told my story. Like I was going to take it to my grave. It didn't matter. It had no value, all kinds of things that I believed.
Which were lies.
Right.
and then I got to a point where I was like God was putting it on me, like, you have to share your story. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that's not the plan. That, the plan is that we're going to take it to the grave and we're just going to live a normal life.
Right.
And we're not going to talk about it. Because the kids in school didn't know what happened to me. I mean, it literally was, I've heard everything that they thought has happened to me.
Right.
But the reality that a man held my face to a heater when I was an infant, but since that heaviness that was put onto me about sharing my story, I began sharing it. And I got invited to go to the Mid-Atlantic Conference on Child Abuse and Neglect and be a keynote speaker. Now, that's an hour and 20 minutes of talking, and I had never shared with anybody my story before.
Oh, wow.
So it was...
Just dive in.
Yeah, it was...
Deep end.
Next thing I know, I'm on an airplane. I'm heading to Maryland to talk in this conference, and there's 500 professionals in there.
Yeah.
And I just got up there and I had a little PowerPoint and I was just like, this was my path and this is how I got to where I'm at today. And I don't even know why I'm standing here in front of you guys, but there's some value to it, I guess. But when I got done, when I walked off the stage area, I felt with conviction that this is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. I'm supposed to share this story. So I thought that I was going to go down the path of being an author and a speaker, because there's value in my story and there's value in the story of Christ and the forgiveness that comes with it. And then all of a sudden we started changing it. And as I was talking and as I was writing, I want to be known for my actions, for the little Keiths that are out there that are hurting and need the help. So then we created the Keith Edmonds Foundation, and then we started raising awareness, and we started Camp Confidence, and we started Confident Community, and we started all these things. And it's really opening me to that little kid that I was, because as hard as it is for me to believe, I know what these kids need.
Yes,
and it's a realization that I'm coming to as we continue to work. It's like all those things that I felt as that little kid, I'm able to give back.
Yeah,
and
God
it's
is
amazing.
using that experience
it's amazing.
to breathe life into what other people have experienced.
It's
as well.
truly amazing. It is. It's just unbelievable.
That's right. And you couldn't do what you're doing to reach all these other little kids that are, and adults who were kids, and all the mess that goes with that, if you hadn't walked the journey. If it was just theory.
Yeah.
We wouldn't listen to you.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people who do have theory out there, but we know in what we do, it's the same thing. God's using that brokenness in the path we're on.
Yeah. I can tell this quick story about when we're at Camp Confidence. We have Camp Confidence here in Wilson County, Tennessee, every summer. And there's a kid, he was 10. and we had just started camping, and he's walking alongside me in the gymnasium, and he's like, hey, my aunt told me what happened to you. Told me about the story. And I said, yeah. And he said, man, nobody's held my face to a heater. That's crazy. And I said, but you want to know what's even crazier? He said, what? And I said, the power of forgiveness has allowed us to create this camp. That kid was like, oh man, that, you know, that's a memory that I'll always remember from the very first Camp Confidence, is that connection. And then at the end of camp, you know, I didn't say, I talked to them and I said, this is not see you next summer. It's see you next month. I mean, we're walking with them month after month now. And then we're leading up to Camp Confidence in 2018. And it's that time. A child spells love Time. That's the way that they spell it. That's the way I spell it even as an adult. Like if I truly am feeling connected with somebody, I want to spend time with them.
Right.
Yeah. And giving it back to the kids it's priceless. I mean, there's no dollar signs. It doesn't even matter the activity that we're doing. In one of our confident communities, we had a balloon and a fly swatter. And they play with that balloon and fly swatter for 45 minutes.
That's awesome.
And I'm standing there watching them like just chase and I was like, holy cow, it's not the activity that we're doing. It's not like we're going to a Nashville Predators game or Dollywood.
Right.
We're just spending that time. And
giving them value in doing that.
Right. And that's something I so desperately needed as a kid. I can recognize it now.
Community, connection.
It's always community. Yeah. It will always be community and spending time with kids. So it's a blessing to be able to do it. It truly is.
And we're so excited to know every place that God's using brokenness and pain and hurt that we've been through, the victim side of the equation, and pulling in that restorative blessing, help other people side, and what you're doing, and the fact that you can do it with so much authenticity because people can't look at you without seeing the heart and where you're coming from in that desire to bless and help. It's just it's awesome.
Well, when I started this path, I was learning that, you know, wearing it, and I'm blessed to wear it on the outside because there's a lot of us that wear it on the inside. You know, I wear it both outside and inside, and there's a lot of hurt people that are walking around that have been through some very challenging times that nobody knows.
That's why I wear it on a shirt,
right?
You know,
like there's no indicator. You had talked about victim on your forehead. Yes. We need ex-victim on our forehead.
Yes,
exactly. Keith, you know what? This is all why you are the ex-victim of the week. So we are rewarding you.
You actually get the chocolates and the tissues and the things that show that brokenness is emotional, that it feels that way.
As physical, right?
And the healing also reaches out.
I do love chocolate. Dude,
awesome.
I'm a huge fan.
We do too. Clearly.
That's why we have the tissues and chocolates everywhere.
Yeah,
but
Andy's mints, I see that.
Yeah, and we're just excited that through your sharing your story, it's one more opportunity for people to see that they can use that brokenness, that pain, that hardship in their own lives. We call it using the fertilizer of our past.
Right, yeah.
To actually bloom today.
Yeah, I call it stripes where I come from.
A free PDF copy of the Bloom in the Dark book and a full list of Bloom Today's coaching tools can be found on bloomtodaytv.com. Then visit Bloom Today's Facebook group for deeper conversation.